I'm Sarah Mitchell, 38, and I never imagined that the people I trusted most would put my daughter Emma in genuine danger. When I found my 14-year-old crying alone in a crowded international airport in Eastern Europe, abandoned by my own sister's family without her luggage or phone, I felt my world shatter. It was just a prank. My nephew Jake laughed when I finally reached him by phone. You should have seen her panic, his sister Madison added, giggling. My sister Rebecca and her husband stood by, watching it all unfold with smirks on their faces. I didn't scream or cause a scene. Instead, I got strategic. The next morning, they had no idea what was coming. Before I dive into this nightmare, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. If you've ever had to protect your child from toxic family members who crossed every line, trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Growing up, Rebecca and I were inseparable. She was my older sister by 3 years, my protector, my role model. That bond felt unbreakable until 5 years ago, when my world imploded. My husband Marcus left me for a co-worker, abandoning Emma and me when she was just 9 years old. The divorce was brutal, leaving me struggling as a single mother while trying to maintain my job as a marketing coordinator at a small firm. Rebecca's response to my crisis revealed a side of her I'd never seen. Instead of offering support, she immediately began making snide comments about how career women always neglect their families. Her husband Paul would nod along, suggesting that if I'd been a better wife, Marcus wouldn't have strayed. Their twins, Jake and Madison, both now 16, absorbed these attitudes and began treating Emma with a mixture of pity and condescension that grew worse over the years. When I was promoted to marketing manager after 2 years of proving myself, Rebecca's congratulations came with barbs. Must be nice having all that time to focus on work since you don't have a husband to consider. When Emma made honor roll, Rebecca would redirect conversations to Jake and Madison's achievements. Every family gathering became a subtle competition where Emma and I were always found wanting. Despite this toxic dynamic, I maintained contact for Emma's sake. She deserved to know her extended family, and I refused to be the one who severed those connections. I organized visits, sent birthday gifts, and swallowed my pride at family dinners. Emma, sweet and desperate for approval, tried everything to win her aunt's affection and connect with her cousins who were close to her age. The trip that would change everything started with a group message from Rebecca. Paul and I are planning an amazing European adventure for the whole family this summer. 3 weeks touring Eastern Europe, Prague, Budapest, Vienna. No excuses, we want everyone there. Family bonding time. My stomach dropped when I saw the itinerary. While Prague and Vienna were relatively safe, the route included several stops in countries with unstable political situations and areas with travel advisories. I immediately called Rebecca. Becca, have you researched all these destinations? Some of these areas have travel warnings. Oh, Sarah, you're being paranoid as usual, she sighed. Paul has business connections there. We've got everything arranged through local contacts. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I have major projects at work, and Emma has her summer theater camp. So, your job is more important than family? And Emma can act anywhere. This is about making memories while we're all still young enough to travel together. The guilt trip worked. When I told Emma about the trip, her eyes lit up with excitement. A real European adventure? With Jake and Madison? Please, Mom, I've never been anywhere like that. I couldn't disappoint her. Not when family experiences meant everything to her. I requested vacation time, paid steep cancellation fees for her theater camp, and began researching safety protocols for our destinations. My research was troubling. While most of our stops were tourist-friendly, 2 cities on our itinerary were in regions with recent political unrest and elevated crime rates. I compiled safety information, emergency contacts, and backup plans. During our pre-trip family video call, I tried raising my concerns. I've been reading about some safety issues in a couple of our destinations. I began carefully. Rebecca cut me off with a laugh. Classic Sarah. Always looking for problems. We're going with local guides who know these areas inside and out. Paul nodded dismissively. You worry too much. Our kids are practically adults. They're not afraid of a little adventure. Jake and Madison are experienced travelers, Rebecca added with a pointed look at Emma. They'll show Emma how to be more confident and independent. That comment sent warning bells ringing, but I was already committed financially and emotionally. The week before departure, I took extra precautions. I registered us with the State Department's travel program, purchased comprehensive travel insurance, and had long talks with Emma about safety protocols. "Mom, you're being super intense about this," Emma complained as I quizzed her on emergency procedures. "Jake says I need to learn to be more spontaneous." "Humor me, sweetheart. Promise you'll keep your passport and emergency information with you at all times and never go anywhere without telling me, even with your cousins." "But Jake and Madison will think I'm a baby if I have to ask permission for everything." "Better safe than sorry," I insisted, not knowing how prophetic those words would become. The night before departure, Emma was texting excitedly with Madison. When I asked about their conversation, Emma beamed. "Madison says this trip is going to transform me. She and Jake are going to teach me how to really live." A chill ran down my spine, but I pushed it aside. Surely my sister's family wouldn't deliberately endanger Emma. Our arrival in Prague was magical. The historic architecture, cobblestone streets, and vibrant culture created the perfect backdrop for what should have been an incredible family bonding experience. We checked into a boutique hotel in the old town, with Rebecca and Paul in a suite, their twins in a connecting room, and Emma and I sharing a standard room down the hall. Emma's excitement was infectious as she unpacked her carefully planned outfits and new camera. "Can we explore now?" Jake said there's an amazing underground club scene that tourists never find. "Let's get settled first, and remember what we discussed about safety," I said, already sensing the direction this trip might take. The first red flag appeared that afternoon in the hotel lobby. I overheard Jake telling Emma, "The drinking age here is basically a suggestion. Nobody checks IDs if you act confident enough." "Emma isn't drinking," I interjected firmly. Jake smirked. "Aunt Sarah's in helicopter mode already. This is going to be a long 3 weeks." Rebecca, lounging nearby with a glass of wine, laughed. "Sarah, you need to relax. When I was 14, I was sneaking out to parties. A little European sophistication never hurt anyone. She's still my 14-year-old daughter," I reminded them. "Well, maybe it's time she learned some independence," Paul added. Jake and Madison have been traveling internationally since they were younger than Emma. I noticed Emma's face fall, that familiar look of someone desperate to belong but held back by an overprotective mother. Later that evening, I found Emma trying on Madison's clothes. "Madison says my outfits make me look like a little kid," she explained, struggling into a crop top that was clearly too mature for her. "She's going to help me pick better clothes for tomorrow." "Your clothes are perfect for you," I said gently. "You don't need to change who you are to impress anyone." "But Jake and Madison know about fashion and culture," Emma protested. "They say I need to stop being so sheltered if I want to fit in anywhere." The comment stung because it contained a grain of truth. Between work and managing our household alone, I hadn't been able to provide Emma with as many social opportunities as I would have liked. Hearing my sister's children's cruel assessment of Emma's social development made me feel like I'd failed her. Our second day featured a guided walking tour of Prague's historic district. The guide emphasized staying with the group due to pickpockets and tourist scams, a warning Jake and Madison immediately flouted by wandering off to explore narrow side streets. "Kids, please stay with the group," the guide called out. "We're just taking photos," Jake shouted back, pulling Emma along with them. I started to follow when Rebecca caught my arm. "Let her go, Sarah. You can't bubble wrap her forever." "It's not about bubble wrapping. It's about following basic safety guidelines. Paul and I aren't chasing after our kids every 5 minutes," she pointed out. "Maybe that's why they're more confident and socially developed." When the 3 teenagers returned, Emma was glowing with excitement. "We found this amazing hidden courtyard. Jake says we should come back tonight and explore the real Prague, not just the tourist stuff." "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "Wandering around unknown areas at night is dangerous." "And there's Sarah, afraid of everything again," Jake announced to the group. No wonder Emma doesn't know how to have fun. Rebecca laughed. My brother-in-law was born 40 years old, always worried about what could go wrong. I bit my tongue, not wanting to create a scene, but pulled Emma aside later to explain the very real dangers of unauthorized exploration in an unfamiliar city. She listened reluctantly, her eyes constantly drifting to where Jake and Madison were animatedly planning their next adventure. This pattern continued for the next several days. Jake and Madison would suggest increasingly risky activities, from attempting to enter age-restricted venues to trying to hire unlicensed taxi drivers for authentic experiences. Each time I intervened, I was painted as paranoid while Rebecca and Paul were praised for giving their children freedom to explore. The tension reached a breaking point on our 5th day during our transfer to Budapest. We were scheduled to take a morning train, with specific seats reserved and tickets that required passport verification for boarding. The night before our departure, I spent an hour organizing our documents and reviewing the travel schedule. The train would leave at 9 a.m. sharp, and we needed to be at the station by 8:30 for international boarding procedures. "Mom, nobody else is doing all this prep work," Emma complained as I double-checked our seat assignments. "Madison says you're making travel seem like military operation. Better over-prepared than scrambling at the last minute," I replied, not realizing how crucial this preparation would become. The morning of our departure, I woke early to an urgent work email. A major client was threatening to cancel a campaign I'd spent months developing unless I could hop on a video call immediately to address their concerns. I hesitated, then made what I thought was a quick decision. "Emma, I need to handle this emergency. Go down to the lobby and wait with everyone else. Tell them I'll be there in 10 minutes maximum. Do not let them leave without me." "Okay," she agreed, already heading for the door. The quick call spiraled into a 25-minute crisis management session as the client demanded detailed revisions. By the time I ended the call, it was 8:40 a.m. I grabbed our bags and rushed to the lobby, already rehearsing my apology for the delay. But the lobby was empty of my family members. The front desk clerk smiled at me. "Are you looking for the Prague Budapest train group? They departed about 10 minutes ago." "That's impossible," I said, my heart beginning to race. "My daughter was with them. They wouldn't leave without us." The clerk checked her notes. Mrs. Rebecca confirmed that all family members were accounted for when they left for the station. I immediately tried calling Emma, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I tried Rebecca, Paul, Jake, Madison. All the same result. The hotel staff helped me call the train station, but in the chaos of international departures, there was no way to locate specific passengers. I was arranging emergency transportation to Budapest when my phone finally buzzed with a message from Emma. "Mom, where are you?" "They left me at the train station." My blood turned to ice. I called her immediately, and this time she answered, her voice small and frightened.
"Mom, I'm scared."
"I don't know what to do." "Where exactly are you, sweetheart? Tell me everything you can see." Through her tears, Emma explained that she was sitting in Prague's main train station alone, without her luggage or even her phone charger. More horrifyingly, she didn't have her passport. It was in her suitcase, which Rebecca had insisted on checking with the main luggage to teach Emma responsibility. "Tell me exactly what happened," I said, already booking the fastest possible transportation to the station. The story that emerged was even worse than I'd imagined. After leaving our room, Emma had met Jake and Madison in the lobby as planned. Jake had immediately suggested they get coffee at a station cafe while waiting for the adults. Jake said we should leave our big luggage with the hotel porter and just take our day bags, Emma explained. He said the adults would handle checking everything onto the train. The 3 teenagers had gone to the station early, where Jake and Madison had suddenly claimed they needed to use the bathroom. "They told me to wait by our platform and watch for you guys." But when the family came, nobody noticed I was sitting in a different area. When Emma tried to board the train, she discovered that her ticket and passport were in her checked luggage, already loaded in the baggage car. The conductor wouldn't let her board without proper identification. I tried calling out to Aunt Rebecca through the window. Emma sobbed. She saw me and waved, but then Jake said something to her and she just turned away and sat down. My hands were shaking as I flagged down a taxi. What happened then? Uncle Paul was walking by my window, and I knocked on the glass. He looked right at me, then Jake said something to him too. Uncle Paul just shrugged and walked away. The taxi couldn't go fast enough. When I reached the station, I found Emma huddled on a bench, looking younger and more vulnerable than she had in years. The moment she saw me, she broke down completely. "They really left me, Mom," she cried as I held her. "They all saw me, and they just left." Once I got her calmed down, I tried calling Rebecca again. This time, she answered, sounding annoyed. "Sarah, where are you? We're already halfway to Budapest." "I'm in Prague train station with Emma," I said, my voice deadly calm. "You left my 14-year-old daughter alone in a foreign country without her passport or luggage." "Oh," Rebecca said, and I could hear muffled conversation in the background. "We thought she was with you. This is just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding? You saw her at the station. She waved at you through the window." "It was very crowded and confusing," Rebecca said defensively. "These things happen when you're traveling with a large group." I heard Jake's voice in the background laughing. Did she really think we were going to baby her through the whole trip? Madison chimed in. "Maybe now she'll learn to keep track of herself instead of expecting everyone else to do it." "Put Paul on the phone," I demanded. Paul's voice came through, casual and dismissive. "Look, Sarah, Emma's fine. She's in a safe, public place. This will actually be good for her, teach her some independence and problem-solving skills. She's 14 years old, stranded without identification in a foreign country," I said slowly. "Do you understand how dangerous that is?" "You're being dramatic," he replied. "It's a train station, not a war zone. She'll figure it out, and she'll be stronger for it." The call ended with them promising to sort out the luggage situation when they reached Budapest, as if Emma's abandonment was merely a minor logistical issue. I spent the next hour dealing with the practical crisis. The station security helped us file a report about Emma's missing luggage and documents. The U.S. Embassy provided emergency travel documents after I explained the situation to an official who was clearly horrified by what had happened. "Ma'am, what your family did could be considered child endangerment," the embassy official informed me. "Deliberately leaving a minor without proper documentation is a serious matter." "I'd like to file a formal report," I said, my resolve hardening as I watched Emma try to put on a brave face. That evening, we checked into a hotel near the airport. I'd made a decision. We weren't continuing this trip. Instead, I was booking us on the first available flight home. "Are we really leaving?" Emma asked as I confirmed our flight reservations online. "Yes," I said firmly. "What they did was unacceptable, and I won't risk your safety for the sake of family bonding." She was quiet for a moment, then asked the question that broke my heart. "Why would they do that to me, Mom? What did I do wrong?" I took her hands in mine. "You did absolutely nothing wrong, sweetheart. This isn't about you. It's about them and their twisted idea of what's acceptable." "But they're family," she said, confused. "Family doesn't abandon you for entertainment," I replied. "Real family protects you, supports you, and keeps you safe. What they did was cruel and dangerous." That night, while Emma slept, I made a series of phone calls that would change our family dynamic permanently. I called my lawyer, my financial advisor, and began researching therapists who specialized in family trauma. By morning, I had a plan. The first call came from Rebecca around 10 a.m. "Sarah, this has gone far enough. Emma's fine. We have her luggage, and you're making a huge deal out of nothing." "We're not coming to Budapest," I informed her calmly. "We're flying home today." "You're ruining the family trip over a simple misunderstanding," she protested. "I'm protecting my daughter from people who think abandoning her is amusing," I corrected. "The kids feel terrible about it," Rebecca said, though I could hear laughing in the background. "Do they? Because I can't hear them laughing right now." There was a pause, then Paul's voice. "You're being ridiculously dramatic. Emma needs to toughen up anyway. The real world isn't going to coddle her like you do." "The real world doesn't deliberately endanger children for amusement either," I replied. "We'll discuss this further when you get back to the States." I hung up and turned to Emma, who had been listening to the conversation. Are you really okay with leaving?
I asked.
She nodded firmly. I don't want to spend another minute with people who think what they did was funny. At the airport, while waiting for our flight, I received a barrage of texts from Rebecca. You're overreacting and embarrassing the family. From Paul. Teaching Emma independence isn't child abuse. From Jake. Maybe Aunt Sarah will finally realize she can't control everything. I showed them to Emma, who read them with growing disgust. They still don't think they did anything wrong, she observed. That's exactly why we're going home, I said. People who can't acknowledge their mistakes can't be trusted not to repeat them. The flight home gave us time to decompress and plan. I explained to Emma that there would be consequences for what happened, not punishment, but boundaries to protect us both. What kind of boundaries? She asked. The kind that make it clear this behavior is unacceptable and won't be tolerated again, I said. Some people only understand consequences, not conversations. By the time we landed, I had mentally prepared for the family confrontation that was coming. I wasn't angry anymore. I was strategic. 1 week after our return, I arranged a family meeting at my house. I spent the morning preparing, arranging the furniture to give Emma and me psychological advantage, and reviewing the documents I'd prepared during our shortened trip. Rebecca, Paul, Jake, and Madison arrived together, a united front clearly intended to overwhelm us into backing down. This whole dramatic exit was completely unnecessary. Rebecca began before even sitting down. We could have worked everything out if you hadn't thrown a tantrum and ruined everyone's vacation. Thank you for coming, I said calmly. Please sit down. We have some things to discuss. Once everyone was seated, I opened the folder I'd prepared and removed several documents. What happened in Prague was a turning point. I began. Not just in how Emma and I view our family relationships, but in how those relationships will function moving forward. Oh, come on, Paul interrupted. You're acting like we committed a crime. Actually, I said, handing him a document, abandoning a minor without proper identification in a foreign country could be considered child endangerment. I've filed formal reports with both the U.S. State Department and Czech authorities. Rebecca's face went pale. You filed official reports against your own family? I documented what happened. I clarified. What authorities choose to do with that information is up to them. Jake, who had been lounging casually in his chair, suddenly sat up straighter. Are we going to be arrested or something? The reports have been filed, I said simply. The consequences, if any, will be determined by the appropriate authorities. I handed Rebecca and Paul additional envelopes. These contain documentation of changes I've made to financial arrangements that affect your family. Rebecca opened hers with trembling hands. You've closed the education accounts you set up for Jake and Madison? I've transferred them to an independent trustee, I corrected. The money is still there for their education, but I'm no longer involved in managing it. You can't just make unilateral decisions about our kids' money, Paul protested. I can and I have, I replied. The accounts were established with me as the sole trustee, with full discretionary power. I've simply transferred that responsibility to a neutral third party. Madison, who had been scrolling through her phone with bored detachment, suddenly looked up. What does that mean for us? It means the money is still available for legitimate educational expenses, I explained. But decisions about disbursement will be made by a professional trustee, not me. This is insane, Rebecca said, her voice rising. You're destroying family relationships over a misunderstanding. I'm establishing boundaries to protect my daughter, I corrected. What you call a misunderstanding, I call deliberate endangerment. Emma, who had remained quiet throughout the exchange, finally spoke up. It wasn't a misunderstanding. You all saw me at the station. Jake and Madison planned it, and you and Uncle Paul went along with it. It was supposed to be a harmless prank, Jake protested, his earlier swagger completely gone. Abandoning a 14-year-old in a foreign country without identification is not harmless, Emma replied with quiet dignity. It was cruel and dangerous, and you thought it was funny. We weren't going to let anything really bad happen, Madison added weakly. Something bad did happen, Emma said. You humiliated me, endangered me, and showed me exactly what you think of me. The room fell silent as the weight of Emma's words settled over everyone. Rebecca tried one more time to regain control. Fine, you've made your point. The kids have apologized. Can we please move past this and get back to normal? There is no going back to normal, I said firmly. This incident revealed fundamental problems with how this family operates. Those problems don't disappear because you want them to. So, what are you saying? Paul demanded. That we're cut off completely? I'm saying that your access to Emma and me is now conditional on respecting boundaries and demonstrating that you understand the seriousness of what happened. I handed them a final document. These are the conditions for future contact. Supervised visits only, with advance notice required. No unsupervised time with Emma until she feels safe and chooses otherwise. This is ridiculous, Rebecca exploded. We're her aunt and uncle. You're people who abandoned her for amusement. I replied calmly. Being family doesn't give you unlimited access to hurt her again. The meeting ended with Rebecca and Paul storming out, muttering about lawsuits and family destruction. Jake and Madison lingered, looking genuinely shaken for the first time. We really are sorry, Jake said quietly to Emma. We didn't think about how scared you'd be. Sorry isn't enough, Emma replied. You need to understand why what you did was wrong, not just that it had consequences you didn't expect. After they left, Emma and I sat together on the couch, processing what had just happened. Do you think they'll ever really understand? She asked. Some of them might, I said, honestly. But understanding isn't required for the boundaries to work. They just need to be respected. Over the following months, our family dynamics underwent a slow transformation. Rebecca initially tried to rally extended family members to pressure me into forgiveness, but the story of Emma's abandonment horrified most relatives. Several family members reached out privately to express their support for the boundaries I'd established. Paul attempted to circumvent the restrictions by showing up at Emma's school, claiming he needed to talk sense into her about her mother's overreaction. The school, which I'd briefed about the situation, refused him access and documented the incident. Jake and Madison made the most genuine effort to repair the relationship. They wrote detailed letters to Emma acknowledging the specific ways their prank had been harmful and dangerous. They requested supervised visits, which gradually became more comfortable as Emma began to trust that they understood the gravity of their actions. Rebecca was the slowest to adapt, continuing to insist that I was overreacting and destroying the family over one mistake. It wasn't until her own marriage counselor explained the concept of child endangerment that she began to grasp why her behavior had been unacceptable. 6 months after the Prague incident, we held our first family gathering under the new structure, a lunch at a neutral restaurant with clear time limits and behavioral expectations. The conversation was careful, but not entirely strained. After lunch, Rebecca approached me privately. I still think you went overboard with all the legal stuff, she said, but I'm starting to understand why you felt you had to protect Emma so fiercely. Thank you for saying that, I replied, surprised by her admission. Will things ever go back to how they were before? She asked. No, I said honestly. But they might become something better, built on respect instead of taking each other for granted. That evening, as Emma and I reflected on the day, she made an observation that encapsulated our journey. I used to think family meant accepting whatever they did to you. Now I know it should mean they wouldn't want to hurt you in the first place. The healing process continues to this day. Trust, once broken, rebuilds slowly and requires consistent demonstration of changed behavior. Not all family relationships survive the transformation intact, but those that did are stronger, built on mutual respect rather than assumed obligation. Our story isn't about a family destroyed by one terrible decision, but about a family forced to evolve beyond toxic dynamics into something healthier. Some bonds were permanently altered, but Emma learned invaluable lessons about self-worth, boundaries, and what authentic love looks like. If there's one thing I've learned through this experience, it's that protecting your child sometimes means establishing hard boundaries with people you love. True family doesn't endanger you for entertainment, abandon you for convenience, or expect you to accept harmful treatment in the name of keeping peace. So I ask you, my viewers, have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members who cross serious lines? How did you handle the aftermath, and what did you learn about the difference between healthy and toxic family dynamics? Share your experiences in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that protecting your children isn't overreacting, it's good parenting. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, sometimes the family we need isn't the one we're born into, but the one we create through love, respect, and healthy boundaries. Sarah stood at the window of her new corner office on the 20th floor, watching the city bustle below. At 43, she finally felt truly confident in her decisions. The chief marketing officer position at a major corporation, which she'd landed 2 years ago, had seemed like an impossible dream during those dark days after the divorce. Now, it felt like the natural result of years of hard work and unwavering focus on what truly mattered. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. "Mom," Emma's voice called from the doorway. Sarah turned to see her daughter, now 19, poised and radiant in her college graduation cap and gown. The transformation was remarkable. Gone was the anxious, approval-seeking teenager who had once desperately tried to win her cousin's acceptance. In her place stood a confident young woman who had just graduated summa cum laude with a degree in international relations and a minor in psychology. "Ready for lunch?" Emma asked, adjusting her cap with a smile that reached her eyes, something Sarah had worried she might never see again after Prague. "More than ready," Sarah replied, gathering her purse. "I still can't believe my baby is graduating college." "Your baby is about to start her master's program at Georgetown," Emma corrected with a laugh. "And she's paying for it herself with that research fellowship. Thank you very much." The pride in Sarah's chest swelled. Emma had not only thrived academically, but had developed an impressive sense of independence and self-worth. She'd spent her junior year studying abroad, ironically, in Prague, and had returned with stories of adventure, personal growth, and a deep appreciation for the safety and support her mother had always provided. As they walked to the elevator, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Congrats to Emma. Sorry we can't be there today, but we're thinking of you both. Can't wait to see the graduation photos." Sarah showed the message to Emma, who smiled genuinely. "It's okay that they couldn't make it. I know they wanted to be here." The relationship with Rebecca's family had evolved in ways Sarah never could have predicted. Jake, now 21, had become one of Emma's closest confidants. After 2 years of supervised visits and family therapy sessions, he had not only acknowledged the cruelty of the Prague incident, but had become Emma's fiercest protector. He'd even transferred to a college closer to Emma's during her freshman year, claiming he wanted to make up for lost time as a decent cousin. Madison's journey had been more complicated. She'd struggled with the family upheaval during her senior year of high school, acting out in ways that eventually landed her in therapy. It was there she'd finally confronted the toxic dynamics she'd absorbed from her parents. Now, 21 and working as a social media coordinator for a nonprofit focused on child safety, she'd found her own way to make amends. "Has Aunt Rebecca called today?" Emma asked as they stepped into the elevator. "This morning," Sarah confirmed. "She wanted to wish you luck, but she understood why today needed to be just about us." Rebecca's transformation had been the most dramatic and, in some ways, the most painful to witness. The formal report Sarah had filed, while never resulting in criminal charges, had triggered a social services investigation that revealed other concerning patterns in Rebecca and Paul's parenting. The scrutiny had forced them into mandatory family counseling and had ultimately led to their divorce 2 years later. Rebecca now lived in a modest apartment across town, working as a guidance counselor at a middle school. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that she'd found her calling in protecting and advocating for children. She'd completed additional training in trauma-informed care and had become a fierce advocate for children in difficult family situations. "You know," Emma said as they exited the building into the bright afternoon sun, "I've been thinking about writing about what happened to us." Sarah looked at her daughter with interest. "Oh, what kind of writing?" "Maybe a research paper for my graduate program, about family trauma, boundaries, and resilience. Or maybe something more accessible, A blog post or article that might help other kids who are dealing with toxic family dynamics. That's a wonderful idea, Sarah said, linking arms with her daughter. You have a unique perspective on what it means to rebuild trust and establish healthy relationships. I want to include the good parts too, Emma continued. How Jake and Madison really changed, how even Aunt Rebecca found a way to channel her issues into something positive. It's not just a story about bad people, it's about how people can grow when they're forced to confront their behavior. As they walked toward their favorite restaurant, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The scared, lonely teenager who had been abandoned in Prague had become a confident young woman who spoke 3 languages, had traveled to 12 countries, and was planning to pursue a career in international conflict resolution. Do you ever regret how I handled things? Sarah asked, a question that had nagged at her for years. Emma stopped walking and turned to face her mother. Mom, you saved me. Not just from what happened in Prague, but from accepting that treatment as normal. You showed me what it looks like when someone truly protects you, and you taught me that I deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. I just worry sometimes that I was too harsh, that I damaged relationships that could have been repaired with more patience. Some relationships needed to be damaged, Emma said firmly. They were built on me accepting less than I deserved. The relationships we have now, with Jake, with Madison, even with Aunt Rebecca, they're so much better because they're built on actual respect and care. They resumed walking, comfortable in the silence that had replaced the anxious vigilance of earlier years. Sarah's phone buzzed again, this time with a photo from Madison, showing her at a child safety conference where she was presenting on digital risks for teens, a survivor's perspective. She's really found her calling, Emma observed, looking at the photo. It's weird how everyone ended up working with kids in some way. Maybe not so weird, Sarah mused. Sometimes our biggest failures point us toward our most important work. At the restaurant, they were seated at a window table with a view of the city park where Emma had played as a child. The conversation flowed easily between Emma's graduate school plans, Sarah's upcoming promotion to VP, and their tentative plans for a mother-daughter trip to Japan in the fall. I got a LinkedIn message from someone unexpected yesterday, Emma said as they waited for their entrees. Uncle Paul. Sarah's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Paul had been the most resistant to change after Prague, and contact with him had been minimal for the past 3 years. What did he say? He's gotten remarried, to someone with teenage daughters. He said he's been doing a lot of thinking about parenting and about what happened with us. He asked if I'd be willing to have a conversation with him about being a better stepfather. How do you feel about that? Emma considered the question carefully. Cautiously optimistic? I mean, the fact that he's asking for help instead of insisting he already knows everything is a big change. And if he's really willing to learn how to be a better parental figure, maybe those girls will be safer than I was. Would you want me to be part of that conversation? Maybe eventually. But I think I'd like to talk to him first, just to see if he's genuinely changed or if this is just him trying to look good to his new wife. Sarah nodded, marveling at her daughter's wisdom and emotional intelligence. The frightened teenager who had once desperately sought approval from adults who mistreated her had become a young woman capable of setting boundaries while still remaining open to genuine change. You know what the craziest part is? Emma said as they finished their meal. I'm actually grateful for what happened. Grateful. Not for the fear and humiliation, Emma clarified quickly, but for what came after. For learning that I deserved better. For watching you fight for me even when it was hard. For seeing how people can actually change when they're held accountable. For becoming someone who won't accept toxic behavior just to keep the peace. As they walked back towards Sarah's office, they passed a family with teenagers who were clearly in the middle of some drama. The parents were trying to mediate while the siblings argued loudly about whose fault some mishap had been. Normal family dysfunction, Emma observed with a smile. The kind where everyone's fundamentally on the same side. Very different from what we experienced, Sarah agreed. But we learned to recognize the difference. That's worth something. That evening, Sarah sat in her home office, updating her calendar for the coming week. On Friday, she had lunch scheduled with Rebecca, their monthly check-in that had become a surprisingly positive part of both their lives. Next month, Jake would be visiting for Emma's birthday, and Madison was planning to join them via video call from her work conference. Her phone chimed with a text from Emma. "Thank you for the perfect graduation day. And thank you for teaching me that love isn't about accepting whatever people do to you. It's about expecting them to treat you with the same care you show them." Sarah smiled, typing back, "Thank you for growing into someone who makes all those hard decisions worthwhile. I'm so proud of who you've become." As she prepared for bed, Sarah reflected on the woman she'd become over these 5 years. The anxious single mother who had once apologized for setting boundaries had evolved into someone who understood that protecting her daughter and herself wasn't just acceptable, it was necessary. The scared teenager who had been abandoned in Prague had become a confident young woman preparing to enter the world of international diplomacy. The toxic family dynamics that had once defined their relationships had been replaced by connections built on mutual respect and genuine care. It hadn't been easy. There had been years of therapy, difficult conversations, and moments of doubt. But looking at Emma now, confident, compassionate, and clear about her worth, Sarah knew she'd made the right choices. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept less than you deserve. Sometimes protecting your child means teaching them that they're worth protecting. And sometimes, the family you need isn't the one you're born into, but the one you create through courage, boundaries, and love. The story that began with abandonment had become one of empowerment, growth, and the kind of love that demands better for everyone involved.